name is Beck and welcome to an odd little video. I just wanted to put together a couple of books on a list that make up kind of my wish list, because these are books that I've had sitting on my Goodreads that I do plan on reading and buying in the future, but I just wanted to let you guys know so you can see what I'm thinking about reading in the future, and also tell me if you enjoyed any of these books and whether they're worth the hype that I'm personally investing in them or not. So let's get into my list. The first one, I know I just asked for input down below, but the first one I'm definitely going to look into because I love this TV series and I've rewatched this TV series, and it's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and this has comics that follow on after the series concludes, and I have not read those yet, so I do plan on buying those. It's a story that is told as a cartoon, but it also tackles such large topics of war and genocide and tragedy, but it does it through the lens of these young characters, and I think a lot of people make the mistake of it being quite kiddie, and at the beginning it is, and it's got such prevalent humor that you kind of forget about the darker topics, and then you realize the grand scope of the series as each installment happens. There are 3 seasons, and like I said, I've rewatched them, so they're not long seasons, and I was left with questions at the very end, and I believe, I'm not going to obviously spoil the trajectory, because if I say who I'm interested in finding out more about, you'll know the trajectory of their story, and I don't want to spoil Avatar, because discovering it is so wonderful. I don't want to take that away from anyone, but the comics specifically follow a particular question that I had about the end of the series, so that's why I want to buy them, but just because I just want more Avatar content, because we had the Netflix series announced and then the creators of the show departed the series in a kind of like a dramatic way. So that, and we don't talk about the movie. So that, coupled with the film I will not mention, I'm not really confident in Avatar content, so I'm going to find it myself in the comics instead. So I plan on buying those in the future. When? I have no idea. Will I? Definitely. The next one on this list is actually a female fantasy author named Trudy Canavan, and I believe she's actually a fairly local author to me because I'm from Australia, and she writes many different kinds of fantasy series, but I think the one that I'm meaning for this video is the Black Magician Trilogy, and it involves a main character and a magical school. That's all I need to know in order to hook me into a book, because I love the magical school trope, and I love the character discovering power trope, and I love potentially the chosen one trope, depending on how it's done. Obviously, if it's written well, then I'm going to enjoy it. I don't know what the first book on this trilogy is, and I don't know how her books link together, because I think they do, so I don't want to look up too many synopses of different books to find out where I should start, but my friend recommended the Black Magician Trilogy to me, so that is on my list to investigate, and I believe that I'll enjoy it, because I've seen people in the past, like co-workers and friends, reading her books and really enjoying them, and I think it's just a fantasy series that I've let bypass me, and I don't want to let it bypass me anymore. So that is why it's on my Goodreads, because that means it stays on my radar, and that means that I eventually will read it, which I plan on doing. The next book that is on this list is the first installment in the Ryeria Revelations series. Try saying that like 20 times fast. Oh my goodness. The first book is called Theft of Swords, and I believe it was initially self-published and then picked up by a publisher, so I think the first book actually has 2 books in it, but I could be wrong. I don't know much about this series other than the fact that I've seen it mentioned on people's lists of fantasies they've enjoyed on BookTube, and that's put it on my radar. That and the fact that it's got like a yellow title makes it stick in my memory. Don't ask me why yellow makes it stick, it just does. I looked up the synopsis on Goodreads just so I could actually give you some kind of substance in this video, and it says, they killed the king, they pinned it on 2 men, they chose poorly. So it sounds like a crew getting together to enact revenge or enact rebellion. Again, that's another trope I love. Found family, brotherhood, rebellion. It just sounds great. And I'm a huge fantasy nerd, so seeing another fantasy series that I haven't read always brings me joy, because I'm like, I can commit to that. It's a completed series, and I've heard people say they like it. So hopefully I do like it. I've heard that the first book is, quite a standard setup, but honestly I don't expect much more from the first book, so hopefully I like the first book enough to continue on with the second. Hopefully I like the characters and the setting, and then if that works, then I will continue reading. But Theft of Swords is on my to be read pile, to be bought eventually. It's on my radar as well, is what I'm trying to say. Next are 2 books by N.K. Jemisin, and she wrote the Broken Earth trilogy, and she also wrote The City We Became, which is an urban fantasy set in New York City, and I've read both of those books, or one trilogy in that book, and I loved the 5th season series. I keep calling it the 5th season series, but it's the Broken Earth trilogy. I loved the Broken Earth trilogy. I gave every book in that series a 5 out of 5 stars, and I gave 4 out of 5 stars to The City We Became. I didn't love that as much, but I liked that it had a particularly Jemison flair on the writing style, and I think if I like her writing style and I loved the Broken Earth books so much, I think I'm going to love her other work so much. So the Inheritance Trilogy is one that I really want to get into, and Killing Moon, or The Killing Moon as well. Not only do they have stunning covers, I anticipate that because they are written by N.K. Jemisin, they will include diversity of sexuality and gender and brilliant fantasy world building. So I am looking forward to them. I don't know anything about them. I didn't know much going into either of her works so far, so I don't want to know much going into these books either, because that'll just shatter my expectations. I think I need to go into them completely unknowing, and the covers are enough to convince me. The fact that I've read her previous work and really enjoyed it also convinces me. So these were like an auto add onto my to be read pile. Next we have a book that actually is a young adult book, which is kind of surprising because I'm a bit haphazard with diving into young adult, only because I feel like I read a ton of young adult when I was a few years younger, and I'm now on the other side of that bell curve of loving it. So it's kind of come down for me just because I found out what I like in my reading taste, and sometimes YA satisfies that perfectly. Like Spellslinger Behind Me, I am obsessed with that series, and other times it'll just be a bit of a miss for me for particular structural things about the book, just that I personally don't enjoy certain things. So it's very up to my taste. It's like if somebody recommends me a movie that's comedy, I probably won't laugh because I've got very, very particular tastes about comedy, and so I just tend to say don't recommend me any kind of comedy because I'm very, very picky. I'm pretty much the same with young adult, so hopefully I like this next one. It is Forks by Nadine Brands, I think is how I pronounce her name. I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but I believe this is a historical fantasy heist story, and I'm just going to read out the start of the synopsis because I don't want to cast dispersions or tell you what the plot is without actually being informed myself. So I've added it to my to be read pile for a reason, because it was recommended on one of my previous comment sections, and I've kept it on my radar on my Goodreads. So the synopsis. Tom Fawkes is turning to stone, and the only cure to the stone plague is to join his father's plot to assassinate the King of England. Sounds very high stakes, high movement, also magical. So naturally it's something that I feel like I will enjoy, and that is why it's on this list. I didn't want to forget about it, and I actually had it wishlisted in my library, but for some reason the title disappeared, so I've had to not forget about it and add it to my Goodreads. So I will be reading it eventually. Like the rest of the books in this video, I anticipate they'll appear at some point in a book haul. I just can't predict when. And then the final book on this list is a book that I probably wouldn't necessarily pick up unless my friends said that it is worth picking up, and I know that it's one of my friends' top favorite books, which is why it's remained on my radar and will remain on my list until I've read it, and that is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuinton. I know that this is a romance. It's an adult romance, I think, about two men, like a male adult rom-com, and it sounds adorable and sweet and funny. And if you saw my video of what I've recently been watching, you know that I love romantic comedy as a genre in general, but I prefer it in film and TV rather than in books. But sometimes I will hit the perfect note of finding something that I enjoy in a rom-com, and I'm hoping that Red, White and Royal Blue will satisfy that for me. So my friend has the audiobook I can borrow. I have it listed at my library in ebook format, so it depends on what avenue I end up going, but eventually I will read it, and if I like it, I will buy it. But that is my list. That is my bookish wish list. That is what I'm going to be buying for myself very soon. But I thought I'd talk about it because these are titles that I've been quite excited about. They're not necessarily new releases, but they're books that I wanted to talk about on my channel to make other people excited about, because if I don't talk about them, then you guys don't know I'm thinking about it. So now we all know, and let me know if they're good. But thank you so much for watching this video. I will talk to you in the comments, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.